Today I want to share with you all what I have dubbed the Lichess Challenge. And what is the Lichess Challenge? It's where if your theoretical opponent played the most common move every single time, they would lose. And let's demonstrate. I have here 8 examples of the most common moves being a forced loss every time. And I think this is just very, very interesting stuff. And lovers of this channel, you know the Popiel Gambit can force a loss here. Let's open the database and prove it. So d5, most common move. And when we play e4, takes, most common move. Now, most common move doesn't mean they're going to play it, obviously, but that's just what the Lichess Challenge is. Can you make them lose with the most common moves every single time? And it's not easy to do because, of course, the most common moves are going to have to be probably pretty sensible. They're crowdsourced. And so here, bishop f5 makes a lot of sense. It defends this pawn one more time, and it prepares e6 to bring this bishop out. However, as we know, f3. And when they play pawn takes f3, that's a mistake, because after queen takes, we are attacking the 2 things that they made unprotected with this queen. And so bishop c8 is now the most common move. Castles, e6, d5. Using our development advantage here, and opening files right where the opponent's king is. This is a big problem for black. And so now we can see how the game typically ends, which is black declines to open the files, which is sensible, but after check and d6, a very clever idea. Now trying to play queen takes b7 to trap this rook when this knight has nowhere to go. So c6, the game typically proceeds, bishop back, but this pawn was just an absolute monster. And now at this point, white can basically pre-move queen g3. So h6, nobody has actually played queen g3 yet. But this still technically counts for the Lichess Challenge. I'll turn on the engine here. Queen g3. Most common moves for black every time, and black is completely lost. No way to defend this pawn. Takes. These bishops have to get in the way, even though they don't want to. And I will link the Popiel full video in the chat below. Lots of cool tricks and traps in the Popiel Gambit. Very strong opening. I would definitely recommend it, and you can get it pretty much all the time, actually. And so that's the Lichess Challenge, and I was wondering, like, wow, that's so cool. Like, they play the most typical move every time, and they lose. How can we show more examples with this? And turns out we can. And I will start you guys off with a Sicilian. Now, I'll note, if we're being technical here, c5 is actually not the most common move. But I will make one exception to the Lichess Challenge, which is on move 1, as long as it's sensible. It's okay. So, or else we'd never be able to solve I'd only be able to offer you Lichess Challenge solutions to just e5. But here, I will show you one for c5. And now I will recommend maybe the 10th, 12th most common move, a3. Now, I'll note a3, not a good idea if you're a Sicilian player as black. The best move being g6, because now b4, the move white was, preparing. Bishop g7 now, and white's just actually a little bit worse here, having to awkwardly defend this rook. So, however, most people play a sensible developing move, and they c6, and now after b4, they will take the pawn twice. And this is a gambit accepted, and white here is able to get a very big center. Now, what black should do in order to maintain equality is probably just d6 or e6, and white will develop behind their big center, but a lot of people are trying the ambitious d5. Fighting for a stake in the center after takes. Queen looks okay here, because the queen can't really be attacked. Knight can't attack it. Bishop can't even move because of this pawn. And c4 not possible. However, this queen lost control of a very important square. It's like the one square black does not control in this whole position. It's right there. And after knight a3, I will allow you guys to pause the video and try and find the one move that hangs on for black. It is not even, it's here. And you can see the difference in win percentage. Queen a5. It's the one move that stops knight b5. Yes, it attacks c3, but more importantly, it actually pins this rook, which is not defended. So you'll note a6 here doesn't really do much of anything to stop knight b5. Most people here are playing knight to f6, knight b5, threatening. Queen comes back. Not bishop f4, because knight d5 holds c7, attacks the bishop, but d5, very strong move. So if knight takes, then we can actually sacrifice our queen and win that back, after which we will be a knight ahead. So, knight e5, most common, bishop f4, This knight must be held here or else knight c7 check. So knight fd7, very awkward. Now knight f3. So now if we were able to take back right here, we're threatening to come into c7 and there's no way to stop that. Bishop c7 actually even stronger, trapping the queen. So black here, most common move. f6 holding the knight there, but f6 gave us a new square. We're going to hop right in there, and then these knights are just going to have so much fun. So knight c5, holding on to e6. Okay, black is responding to our threats, but knight c5, like f6, provoked a new problem, which is that this is not defended. So we can take, go check, take this pawn. Rook's hanging. Rook over, check. So we actually achieved the check we wanted, but if we're smart, and a lot of people here are, we're actually not even going to take the rook. And knight d6, even stronger move. So knight takes e6, d takes e6, and black is actually would have to take it again. This king has no squares, after which we're just going to take and just kill them. So the most common move, we're following that all the way through. Queen d6 allows checkmate, knight g5. The average, the typical player, if we may say so, I guess the probability of following every single one is low, but the typical player will get checkmated in 19 moves. And we are actually going to beat that in one of these other Lichess challenge solutions that I've discovered. So stay tuned for that. Yeah, and I have now found a Lichess challenge solution for not only c5, but also e6. e6, the French defense. d4, d5, and e5. So knight c3, knight d2, bishop d3, all these are probably better than the advanced variation, to be fair. But e5, c5, and now white should play c3 to hold this center together, but I am giving you not c3 and knight f3. So here black should take it, actually, because then we lose defense here, but knight c6 is being played, and now we should come to our senses with c3, but I'm recommending knight c3 all the way down here. So again, this is actually literally just a pawn. If they take it and take it, they are just up a pawn. Knight b5 we can play, but after bishop c5, they can take like this, force this knight to move, and they are up a pawn. So I'm not recommending this opening, but I do think that this is a very instructive solution to the Lichess challenge, because it really actually demonstrates how to attack very well, and also demonstrates traps that people are falling into very often. So queen b6 is a sensible French defense kind of move to put pressure here and here, but it's more sensible when the pawn's on c3, because here, as we noted, black can actually already win d4. So bishop e3, reinforcing here and really baiting black into this mistake of queen takes b2. Very, very tempting pawn, but not a good idea. Knight b5. Again, the queen lost control of the c7 square. And here, black has one good move. It is all the way down here. Rook to b8, so as to not allow a fork. And now if check, this kind of costs way to move to get rid of black's castling. But the most common player for black will play king d7, losing their castle. Queen b4 is almost the most common move, but it's just bishop d2, and knight c7 next turn wins the rook. So king d7, d takes c5. It's just a pawn. It's just a pawn we can capture. We're not trapping this queen right away. Rook b1, they take this one. And we're also preparing knight d6. We're getting rid of bishop b4 ideas. And so this is a very nice pawn to take. Knight takes e5 is the second most common move and not a good one. Bishop d4. Knight takes f3. Presumably we're attacking here. Queen takes. And after takes c2, bishop d3. We're taking f7. We're castling. And all our pieces are going to demolish this black king and this queen. This is also misplaced. No development here for black. So in this position, a6 is typically being played, but now white has a very, very clever solution. It's not knight d6, which is the most common one, but playing rook b1, forcing black to take this, just going back rook a1, queen b2. This is the exact same position, except that pawn is gone. And no, we don't want to draw, of course, but we're just going to continue developing. We got rid of this pawn so that we can pin this pawn, preventing pawn takes knight. Isn't that nice? And so here, black might realize that they're completely screwed because this queen can't move. Castling is coming, and after queen d2, rook fb1 is going to trap it. So knight takes e5. They're trying to get this pawn. No matter, just castles. And now, like I said, bishop d4 is coming. And so black is taking this with check and coming back queen f6. So they get their queen to escape. They hold the f7 pawn. Looks like maybe they succeeded somewhat. But at queen g3, queen c7, big idea. So most common move, still following it, e5. bishop g5, queen e6, and c4. Very, very strong. And this, black's 2 pawns up and is not getting mated on the spot or losing material on the spot. So what do you guys think the eval is? The eval is about +8 because what's going on here is the king is in the center. There is no development whatsoever. There's no development. These pieces are not doing anything. They may as well not be there. These rooks are going to come on these files and completely kill the poor black king. C4, a very smart idea just to tear this open. Just bring your pieces out, keep your own king safe, and tear your opponent's king open. It's a great, great strategy. And here, it just sort of demonstrates that how to attack. Because how we want to attack isn't just like a one-move mate threat that your opponent can deal with. We want to eventually make a threat that there is no way to deal with it, that there is no defense. And so how do we do that? That's when the attacking resources outnumber the defending resources, right? And so that's by getting all our pieces out, being quick to not allow our opponent to get their pieces out. And the key word there is overwhelm. It's to overwhelm and just, you know, with the defensive resources they have, just say that those are insufficient and you don't have time to bring over more, or you just don't have more. And so that's what's happening here because all of white's pieces are just doing fantastically here. So a very instructive solution to the Lichess challenge, even if I definitely cannot recommend this opening because, as I said here, pawn takes d4. We don't have a pawn here, and it's just going to be winning this one. So that one was fun. Here is an interesting one. With e5, a true Lichess challenge, because every move here will be the most common one, including the first one. But I will have a Danish Gambit here with d4, but first a King's Gambit here with f4. So inviting the King's Gambit accepted variation and knight f3, by far the most common one, to keep the queen out of h4. But I invite you guys to play bishop to c4. And almost everybody here is going for this very, very tempting check because it forces the king to go over. Very, very tempting check. Of course, we cannot play g3 because they will take our pawn. I will note, if you guys are King's Pawns players with black, as you might be if you're fans of the Busch-Gass Gambit, for instance, I would recommend here to play d5. Gambit a pawn back. Always gambit. Bishop takes d5, knight f6. And to continue to bring stuff out, knight c3, bishop b4. And you'll note black is the one having all the fun. There's a lot of pressure here. King there, rook e8. Queen h4 check is not off the table at all. And so here, white is the one that needs to be quite careful. So, however, d5 here is not common at all. And queen h4 is what people are going for. And now instead of like d6, knight f6, or even d5, people are going for bishop c5, which is a very tempting mate threat. However, this is not a good idea because simply d4 takes great space in the center, tempos the bishop, and deals with the mate threat. So this bishop simply needs to go back. And this position is so bad for black all of a sudden because they've just moved their queen, their bishop, and got done no development again, that knight c3 and knight f3 are both solutions to the Lichess challenge. And I will prove it to you. Here's knight c3, knight c6, and simply now knight f3, queen f6, knight d5. So these knights are really just having a lot of fun attacking this black queen. That's the second time. Bishop takes f4. An absolutely beautiful position for white. Knight f6 invites a nasty pin right there. h6, we simply double that. And c3. c3 is just a very solid move to hold on to this pawn. And this queen's just going to like maneuver around, make some threats here. And black, again, with no development, no king safety, no space in the center, and in a losing position. However, maybe you're like, okay, well, that's just kind of a bad position. Let's see something a little more flashy, a more flashy solution to the Lichess challenge. Here we go. Knight f3, attacking the queen, queen back. Knight c3. Threatening to do that. Black's like, no, not again. Spoilers, yes again, because we're going to attack that knight, chase it away. Let's pick up that pawn. Castles. And now this knight has ventured too far, has no more friends near it that can help. And so h3, this knight is forced to go back, knight h6, a total disaster. G takes h6 being forced. And now not queen d2, but even stronger is knight d5. It happened anyway, knight d5. So now where does this queen go? You have 3 squares that don't lose it immediately, but queen e8 still gets you forked. Queen e6 does not help because this is a discovered check. So queen d8 is the most common. Check, king over, and the finishing touch. Of course, a lot of things are winning here, but queen d3. Threatening h7, exposing this black king. You'll see, again, no development on this whole side of the board. Kind of a trend for losing positions. And black is actually forced to give up their queen with queen takes f6 in order to not get checkmated here. So those are two very nice solutions to the Lichess challenge in the Bishop C4 King's Gambit. A very, very interesting and poisonous variation. So I promised you guys that we would sacrifice the other pawn. And not just that pawn, but one more. And one more. This is the Danish Gambit. And black here has taken a lot of pawns and activated a lot of bishops and must be very careful. And once again, a good solution out of the Danish Gambit is to give something back. Give something back in order to get some development out. So d5 allows black to breathe a little bit with their pieces. And now knight f6 is threatening some stuff here. And what white should play is actually what looks like wins a queen. Bishop takes f7, check. King takes, queen takes d8. Check, though. There's a check, and that queen's under attack, so this queen needs to go back. Takes, knight takes. A crazy position that is actually completely equal, because white has 2 extra pawns here, black has 2 extra pawns here. And this position has actually occurred a lot of times for people that know the Danish Gambit quite well, but not obvious. I mean, how many people are playing d5 here? Not too many. So, most people here are playing bishop to b4. Let's turn off that guy. Knight c3, we block it. Black thinks maybe they can finish their development and keep their 2 extra pawns. Bishop takes f7 check is an interesting tactic to maybe get something back. Queen b3, and you'll take b4. But it's black is actually doing quite fine. Queen b3, let's play. Attack here, attack here. Black says, no problem. Let me just take the knight and I'll castle next turn. And most people are just playing bishop takes c3, allowing after castling, the rook will protect the f7 pawn. However, I propose to you, queen takes c3. Very interesting move. So now castling, and now the strong move, pawn to e5. Now this knight's under attack. And we've switched from this diagonal, because the rook is there, to this diagonal. We want that knight to move, and we want to move this pawn one more time and deliver a mate threat right there. And so when I first discovered this solution to the Lichess challenge, rook e8 was the most common move, but now it's tied with knight e4. So you guys can tell me in the comments if this still counts. I'll go over the knight e4 variation quickly as well. So queen d4, black really needs to know what they're doing though. Knight g5, these are all forced moves. E6, so this is the idea. E6, we attack that knight. We're making that mate threat here. Now, if you take this to defend here, I simply remove your knight and we'll checkmate you. So black here is one move that keeps them alive, and it's queen f6, proposing a queen trade, which of course they really want if their king's under fire. And now, I mean, the order here doesn't really matter. Takes, 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 takes. And the best move here, actually not even taking the pawn right away, but literally just castling long. We're 2 pawns down in the endgame, but black's pieces are that bad. These are doing nothing. This is the only one that's out, but it's pinned. And we're just playing knight e2, we're playing knight f4, we're bringing the rook out, we're playing knight d5, attacking here, attacking here. White's going to have a lot of fun here, and even Stockfish, notorious Gambit hater, will give us a slight advantage in this position, even though we're 2 pawns down. So I still maintain that you can have a lot of fun in this position, even if they find knight e4, but rook e8 technically counts, it's tied for first. Looks like a very sensible idea. We're pinning this pawn. However, white has this incredible move that's almost never been found. Well, a couple times. Castle's long. Castle's long. We have no pawns here to defend our king, but they have no pieces to attack our king. Our king can't be unsafe if they have nobody to attack it. And now we'll figure out why rook e8 was such a mistake. So, first of all, to complete the Lichess challenge, the people here are playing Big Bro 007. This guy knows it. This guy knows it because, the people here are playing d5, but he's just going for en passant. But you can just take this knight. This is pinned. So here, black can resign. However, let's go over this. So what's going on here? Knight e4. Can black just stay 2 pawns up? Now the point is this rook has left this pawn. And so we will play bishop takes, king takes, e6 check. And we're going to take g7. And so black here has one move to hang on. It's rook takes pawn. Queen takes king e8. Okay, we're down a piece and 1 pawn. Check, check, we can play. But let's get that pawn back with some checks. Another check. And now let's play knight h3. So knight h3 holds f2 from that guy. We're going to play knight f4. Knight's looking at all sorts of squares from f4. Rook's going to come into the game. This king is just completely overwhelmed, and these defenses here are impossible. I mean, queen f8, the move. This is a complete disaster to defend. And so white is winning. Bishop takes f7. I guess they don't have to take it back. They can play maybe king. Which way are you going? h8, let's say. Queen d4. Attack this. or I mean, our queen was under attack here. So rook over. Let's take the knight. They take back, but e6. This pawn is an absolute beast. Look at that with the pin, forcing the rook over. And I think here we can just continue to develop or something. And I mean, black's got pretty much nothing, and I think this knight's gonna come in h5. There's queen takes h7. So all sorts of fun things going on here in this line in the Danish Gambit, with the key move being castling long to prepare bishop takes f7 and e6. An absolutely brilliant solution to the Lichess challenge in the Danish Gambit. All right, we now have a full white repertoire to solve the Lichess challenge. Originally, this was from the von Popiel with d4 and move 1, but we have a3 against c5. We have the King's Gambit and the Danish Gambit against e5. And against e6, we have our weird advanced French solution. Let's look at stuff for black. Let's look at how can black punish white if white is the typical opponent. Let me introduce to you the two Knights Tango, where black immediately threatens e5. So white actually should play knight f3, but most people are playing here knight c3, which allows e5, and after d5, knight e7, and white's just taking more of the center. But here, I mean, black could transpose into like a King's Indian, but this bishop here would be kind of jammed in, and instead that bishop could have a lot more freedom by developing to c5. And now here, a lot of white players are saying, okay, maybe I want some flexibility with this pawn. I want to keep the knight out of the square. And instead of knight f3, they're choosing to put their knight on e2. Except this is quite the error. You guys can pause the video and try to figure it out. A very Stafford-esque idea. Knight g4. Attacking f2, white is already lost. White is already lost. They castle, queen h4, attack here, attack here. This knight needed to be on f3 to hold h2 and also keep the queen out of the square. White here has absolutely nothing. H3 they can play to not get mate in one move. Knight takes. This is overwhelming. So they take the knight. Queen takes. King h1. I mean, I could already end it here, but I will take this all the way to mate. I promised you guys I would beat the 19 move Lichess challenge checkmate with the 2a3 Sicilian. So let's play here d6 to open up this bishop. Knight a4, it's a sensible idea. They're trying to get rid of this, but it's also an idea that gets you checkmated. Bishop takes h3. Another sacrifice. Another sacrifice. We just have a lot of pieces around this poor white king. So takes. Let's throw in this check. King up, only move, knight h4. Threatening queen g2. Queen h1, the one move you can play to cover that square. Also gets you checkmated. The game numbers are dwindling because there's, I think, a lot of resignations coming. But a 16 move checkmate if white plays the most common move every single time, other than, I guess, d4. So if you're a d4 player and you play the most common move every single time, you can get checkmated in 16 moves. So be sure to be different and not follow the most common move every single time. All right, another warning for d4 players in d5. So this is a Slav, and knight c3. I believe knight f3 is maybe a more sound way to approach the Slav, but knight c3. And e5. This is known as the Winawer Countergambit. So takes, takes, takes. And now the best move for black is d4, and after which, you know, if this knight moves, black can regain this pawn. It leads to roughly equal positions. However, the Lichess challenge doesn't often recommend the best moves, and so here I offer knight c6, offering another pawn, queen takes d5, and white's excited. Oh, 2 pawns up, and they're gonna trade queens. So, you know, finally I got the queens off the board. There's no way you can get me. Bishop e6, trade, knight f3, simple development, hold this pawn. Uh-oh, knight b4. And when that queen moves, make sure to not forget about this. This has happened a few times in the Lichess challenge, where now white has absolutely no solution to knight c2. Because if the rook moves over to not get forked, that's actually checkmate. And so otherwise, you know, bishop d2 you need to play, which just loses the rook. I'll note here, if white played like any other move, like any other bishop move out, I mean, it makes sense they wanted to defend this pawn, but here they're fine because they have rook c1. Or even e3, because knight b4 they have check, and this can come back or something. However, most common move, Lichess challenge solution here, that counts. So, and now I will take you guys to the last solution that I have discovered thus far to the Lichess challenge, the most common move every single time. Can we put our opponent in a losing position, our theoretical opponent? And it comes to you with the WALRUS Gambit. I think Eric Rosen once had a video on this, but I don't think he delved into the theory. I actually intend on making another video. When discovering the solution to the Lichess challenge, I actually thought the Walrus Gambit was so good and so playable and so tricky and so trappy that I'm actually going to make another video on this. And so I'm very excited to show you guys this. Probably the worst move according to Stockfish, I would venture to say, e5. Just giving them the pawn right away. If they play the second most common move, g3, we can play e4 and we're actually already better. So they should take the pawn, and they do. Knight c6. It's a very Stafford or Busch-Gass Gambit-esque idea. We want them to take. I will cover, of course, knight f3 in the other video, but they take is most common. D takes c6. So d takes c6, it's such a fantastic capture because it opens everything up. Look how all our pieces are open. They're ready to join the game. White's position is completely blank. White is a blank slate. They can develop any way they please. They can play e4, which allows a Stafford or a Busch-Gass. Typically, they are not doing that, and they are playing d4. And we want to take whatever they give us. However they move their stuff out, there's going to be some way that we can take advantage of that because we have the pieces out, and we're going to have the development, and we're going to try and get them. So d4, they're playing knight out. c4. They're playing it like true d4 players, and I think c4 actually even is the recommendation of Stockfish. C4, and now here I recommend a very tricky move all the way down here, knight to e4, hopping in with the knight one more time. And so now we're looking a little bit at f2. And so they're like, okay, that seems fishy. Let's get rid of that knight. We're like, no, let's make that pin. Let's cause some problems here. Queen c2 is almost the most common move, but a terrible idea because we take here, defend our knight, put even more pressure here. So bishop d2, they should play. Taking here, I'll note, is not a good idea because knight takes e4. Tricky stuff. If we take here, they take here. If we take here, they can come back, and so we're actually going to be down a piece. So bishop d2, we're simply going to get rid of this knight, and now white needs to be very, very careful. If they play bishop takes c3, as 7 out of 9 individuals have done, including, I believe, look at some very high-rated individuals. Bishop takes c3, queen f6, and I just find this unbelievable. They have no way to defend f2. They have no way. This bishop is, there's no bishop e3, there's no knight here to do anything. They have nothing to defend f2 with other than to push this pawn, allowing queen h4 check. And as we know, if our opponents move their f-pawn and we can deliver this check while controlling this square, then typically it's a problem for them. And so takes, queen takes h1, and I can keep going with the Lichess challenge because this has the majority of games here with d5, which I guess opens this, but that allows a much worse problem, bishop h3, and big problems for white here. I'll leave that as a Lichess challenge solution. So I'll backtrack a moment here. White should know to play pawn takes c3. It's very unnatural, and black can keep having fun here. So yes, I hope you loved my my idea, my challenge that I came up with. It was just by researching the Von Popiel, I'm like, wow, this is incredible. People are falling into these traps, and it's just the most common moves every single time. And I just find it so intriguing to like look at the types of blunders that people are making and to know how to punish them. And also it's lots of fun to come up with. So let me know in the comments if you guys want me to keep discovering more Lichess challenge solutions, or if you want me to expand on the theory from any of these lines, or if you have your own solutions to the Lichess challenge. I would definitely love to see. I will be posting this study, and it will look much cleaner. Let me refresh it actually. So it'll look much cleaner, and so you guys can see all these Lichess challenge solutions. Thank you so much. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you all next time. Have a great day.